Hello everyone, welcome back to another Behind the Hype. Today we are talking about the new normal of customer onboarding post-COVID-19. My name's Ryan Clifford and I'm here today with two speakers who I'll let introduce themselves, both Ramy and Twan. Ramy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Welcome to the session. So my name is Ramy Elkhoulany. I'm based in Dubai. I'm the principal product manager for APIs and integration at Finastra Retail Banking. Twan, please.
Thank you. I'm Twan Burghouts. I'm based from Sofia, Bulgaria. I'm with Uniken and I'm the senior pre-sales and integration lead. For the last 10 years, I've been working with IT companies trying to digitalize the world. So I'm looking forward towards a session today to see how we can propose some good suggestions for post-COVID. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us today. So I'm just going to cover a little bit about Finastra, in case you haven't heard of us. We are a financial technology company who operates across the world. So we have about 130 countries that we're present in. We have multiple lines of business across payments to lending, retail banking, treasury, capital markets. There's lots of different products, and in our financial year 19, we had over 1,000 go lives with our products. And we serve quite a large market. So about 90 of the world's top 100 banks use our technology. And our footprint covers we have 10,000 people spread over about 60 offices. Obviously at the moment, majority working from home. And if I move on to what we're doing at Finastra in terms of innovation and how we're collaborating with the ecosystem, that's really leveraging our platform, fusionfabric.cloud. So what we're doing is we are opening up our core banking systems that you can see at the bottom there via APIs to the ecosystem up the top. So whether you're a fintech, our own developers, you can be a system integrator, university, or ISV, you can tap into our core banking systems and start innovating to serve our clients, financial institutions, via our platform. So it's a great route to market, which allows you to essentially collaborate and get to a larger market by working with us as a partner. It allows you to create solutions in a faster time because you can access data through APIs, which historically you wouldn't have been able to get access to. And it also allows you to manage risks and meet regulatory deadlines faster by using that power of the whole ecosystem. So that's fusionfabric.cloud very, very briefly. I just wanted to touch upon it there. And the session today, we're talking about onboarding. What's interesting is banking is experiencing major shifts in multiple places. So if you look at the last decade, you've seen new technology come and disrupt financial services. You've had things like cloud computing, AI, machine learning come in, change the space. But also customer expectations are a lot higher. They're used to having very personalized services delivered to them. Sometimes it's because actually their experience in a completely different area has now made it so that they want the same experience in banking. So that's interesting when you look at the expectations from a customer. And one of the biggest things is you're actually seeing a lot more new players on the scene from other fintechs who are coming in and disrupting traditional banks. And they can disrupt you by providing better services, being quicker. They're using different business models as well to kind of disrupt this space. So that's just a lot of different things that are going on in the space, but I want to move this topic on now to today's topic. And we've got 5 key questions that we're going to be tackling today. So what does the new normal, which is the buzzword at the moment, look like when it comes to onboarding? How can banks ensure that they are onboarding the right customers, which is very important? How can banks ensure full ID is carried out? Why APIs help you to verify identity, and how developers are a crucial part and can improve and enhance that customer journey. So I'm going to pass over to Ramy for our first question on what does the new normal look like?
All right. Oh, thanks, Ryan. So traditionally, I'm gonna talk about the customer onboarding journey, how it looked like in the traditional banks before we move into the new normal. So obviously, in the branch era, the physical presence is a must. So we used to go physically to the branch, and we used to have a physical face-to-face meetings, with the CSR officer, with the loan officer, or whoever is required for our customer onboarding journey. And then I have physically provide the documents to the bank. They do an actual scanning for the documents, or I submit original copies to them. And then it can goes to an internal approval cycle, which may take hours, and it could take days as well. And then up to reaching the product, which at the end of the day, I'm going to onboard a customer to reach a product, which is maybe a debit card, credit card, checkbook, or getting a loan or whatever. So that's actually the actual customer onboarding journey, which mainly required the physical presence. Now, the question post-COVID is actually, is the physical presence still relevant? I guess no, because with this current situation, banks are encouraged, and everyone encouraged to do this over devices, over mobile phones, internet, video chatting. So everyone will try to avoid the physical presence. And now, even before COVID situation, so we have the norm of the neobanks or the digital banks, which is there in the market a few years back. And if you see some of the stats here, it shows that the neobank in 2019, they managed to onboard 15 million customers since 2011. While the traditional banks are actually decline the onboarding. And there is a forecast even done before COVID-19 that the new banks will be able to onboard up to 85 million of the customer in Europe. And all these stats are actually before even COVID situation comes into the picture. So now what we can say that like COVID-19 just is gonna accelerate the digital move. So now banks, traditional banks or the digital banks have nothing to do but the digital journey. The digital onboarding, while it's on mobile or using the internet banking, it can be shortened to a quick 4 steps, which is actually you will onboard using your mobile phone, email, ID, and then you can simply upload your documents, your photo, take a selfie, and then submit it. It goes to an internal bank review, and then you are digitally onboarded. With the use of technology, you can take a selfie, you can check the live check, and some optical character recognition, and so on from these kind of technologies. So the second question, which we need to ask for our fintech representative, how can banks ensure that we are onboarding the right customer despite the technology which allow us to do? How can I make sure that I am onboarding the right one and this is not a fake robot or someone trying to overtake my financial information? So Twan, sorry, you are on mute.
I'm sorry, that was my microphone on mute. Ramy, thank you very much. I think you covered all steps already, but let me try to explain how Uniken has taken a step forward in the digital onboarding. Of course, we also did it already before COVID, but what we're seeing right now is that we're trying to help banks to actually digitally onboard their customers in a secure manner. So If we quickly run you through the process we normally set up at banks and financial institutions, it's all mobile centered. So the customer downloads the mobile application. They identify themselves as being new to the organization or actually new to the mobile application. We then ask them to validate themselves through a known factor, so an email address or a phone number. We verify that they are the person that are being registered and then ask them to scan a document. What we actually do in the background is that this document is scanned on key features. So we are using the same technology as a border police would be using to verify the document validity. Then we actually, in the background, scan the document and then ask the person to do a liveness check. So we actually take a selfie of the person. We compare the data of the photo on the document with the data provided by the selfness check, and then we actually pass it on through a verification process. To be able to actually identify the person as being the person using the mobile device, we also bound the device biometric identifier. So we use facial recognition, fingerprint, PIN pattern, and then actually bound it to the device to be able to make sure that the person using the mobile device is also the one that is trying to register. All this data combined is then actually sent and verified towards the AML and KYC processes that the bank or the financial institution has in place. And upon finalizing these verification steps, we actually create a temporary account for the user. It's very important to say that this temporary account is then pushed through the organization by the bank itself. So they still follow their own KYC and AML processes. We just enable the bank to fully do this digitally in a secure manner. So Ramy, on top of your 4 boxes, we really try to ease the process and to make the steps a lot more easy for the end customer. So both secure and ease of use is very important for the user to be able to use the products that the bank is using. Ramy, shall I continue with the next question straightforward?
Please.
Okay, so if we continue to the next question is actually how do we take a step forward on the onboarding process? So how do we identify the person that is being onboarded, that has been verified, they have provided the KYC details? How do we actually enable them to use the services of the bank? So we are there to actually make the security follow the customer journeys that the bank is providing to enable their financial services. As you can see, we are covering all the financial services a bank might offer. And what we actually do is we enable the bank to actively send a customer a verification to identify themselves. Ramy, if you can continue. So the organization actually initiates a certain process coming from one of the channels you're seeing. And what we then do, we actually secure the connection. So first we look at the network the user is using, we look at the device if it's not been tampered with, and then also the application if there is no malware running in the background. If we have done all these checks, which happen in seconds, we actually continue with the pillar that we call Authenticate, where we again ask for the biometric details that the user has provided during the onboarding. One of the key features of our solution is actually that we put a cryptographic key invisible on the mobile device and half of the key on the server side of the bank, so that we are making a secure channel between the mobile device and the bank's premises. We then mutually authenticate them, and upon that moment, we actually enable them to transact. So we can support transactions of transfer payments, bill payments, mortgage payments, any kind of transfer that has been enabled by the bank and provided by the financial services can actually securely be provided through the steps that you're seeing here. 3 simple steps by identifying the customer through a secure, authenticate, and eventually transact possibility. We can enable omni-channel banking across all the channels and services that the bank is providing.
It's not only the onboarding. It is also the after onboarding and in the day-to-day transaction, we need to make sure that, again, this is the right customer, he is doing the right job. So we need to always keep up to date the data and make sure that the customer is the right customer for the transaction.
Exactly.
All right, so I'm gonna jump to the next question, which is why ABIs helps to verify identity. So we've been talking about the process in general, and again, back. Sorry. Yeah. So the most accurate way to verify someone, obviously, is to have his physical presence, as we mentioned earlier, that he is there, he's providing you the actual documents, you have seen it, you can verify that this is an original document, you can scan it using devices and make sure that this is the right document. However, as we mentioned, in the absence of the physical presence, now the AKYC ABIs plays critical role in the ID verification. So, as Twan mentioned in his example from the fintech point of view, as much as we can, we need to add more and more factors to make sure that we are minimizing the risk. So there is a risk for sure, because you don't have the physical presence, so there's a risk, and the risk can be calculated, and each bank or regulator will put a margin of risk for doing this, because the full ID verification at the end of the day, at some point of time, may require some physical interaction. It could be through sending by email, by post office, or using a kiosk machine to verify maybe your ID or your passport. But at the end of the day, at some margin of risk, we can carry on and move forward with the onboarding process. We just need to combine as much as we can from the information, making sure, collecting the email and verifying the email, send a kind of OTP to mobile phone, verifying the physical address through address lookup services, verify the IP address that he is onboarding from the right location, from the right country, right state, and also validating a clear picture, because sometimes you may submit a low resolution picture, which can also be modified later on. So as we say, the more sources utilized, the less of the risk. So coming next, actually, my advice to the developers or to the financial institution is to maximize the use of technology in the onboarding process. Capitalize on the mobile phones and devices. Now, the phone which you are holding is actually a computer, and it's more fast than the computer we used to use in the past. It has lots of features, lots of sensors you can capitalize on to make sure, again, of the identity of the physical presence and also the behavior. So first of all, the biometrics print, which is there in the phone, you may capitalize on that. So, and you delegate this to, let's say, Apple Face ID or Google fingerprint or whatever. This is to capitalize on the device itself. We also put, fraud detection and prevention software. So banks cannot live now without a fraud detection prevention. Again, with this COVID situation, you may receive spam emails or a wrong payment. So banks need to be very, very cautious and put a fraud detection software on top of their system, and also to analyze the behavior and put a behavioral authentication. So now with phones, you can still have what we call the behavioral authentication. This is how I used to use my phone. I'm using this with my left hand, but I did this transaction with my right hand. So there is something different in my behavior. I used to use it in the morning time, but I've did this in the evening. I don't do transaction in the weekend. So this is what we call the behavioral authentication. So we keep tracking the user for his good, actually. So in order at the end of the day to make sure that really this is the intention of the user to do a transaction or to onboard for a specific product or a loan, or so on. All right. So the next, or the wrap-up question for us, or the call for action, or how developers can improve and enhance the customer journey. Okay, so as we mentioned, the Finastra is opening the space for the developers to come and build on multiple places. And as far as our concern today, we are talking about the customer onboarding journey. So the code says here, the great APIs are like Lego bricks. So the more APIs we believe in Finastra, the more APIs and touch points we give to developers, we give to banks, the more flexibility they can add, the more the more I would say the building blocks will complete. There are lots of regulations banned from a country to another, and they need to have a space to customize and change. So for a simple customer onboarding journey, we offer here a few APIs. First of all, the create customer API, and that can expand to a personal customer. This could be an SME or a large organization. So this is whole for the customer creation. There are also supportive services like check, dedupe check functionality, a fuzzy check, make sure that this is the right person is onboarding. If suppose, for example, sharing the same apartment or share address, you will get some warnings like this is we have someone else using the same address, so it's a notification to the developer or to the bank. Maybe it will ask more questions to the customer, or that's okay. And then the main API which we capitalize in and work with multiple fintechs is actually to check the ID verification, and that can go to governments, can go to post office, or putting this on top of machine learning, as Twan mentioned, matching the photo, the live photo, to the documents which has been uploaded into the place. And for sure, this goes through the upload document. So it could be a digital document, could be digital signature as well, integrating with digital signature providers. And we are doing all of this in order to create an account or create a product or service into the bank. So obviously, we offer a lot of onboarding, account onboarding APIs as well. That goes to the checking account, saving account, term deposits, and even the loan life cycle completely can be handled through APIs. So the more APIs we put into the place, the more journeys, the more innovation developers and fintechs can build and customize based on your local regulation or bank requirement to fulfill the full customer journey. And let me ask Twan, from the fintech point of view, how do you see the APIs are useful as a fintech in order to put your software into a production for the banks?
So if we take a step back and we actually look at the current problems we're seeing, is that before COVID, we had an omni-channel experience, and right now we need to digitize that. So where you mentioned the APIs actually supporting this channel to digitize the experience for the customer. So we see more and more fraud attempts on mobile devices. We see more and more fraud attempts coming through and actually using the current situation we are unfortunately in. So we are trying to make this the secure matter to actually enable the omni-channel banking experience. So as you're seeing all the channels that an omni-channel could provide, we actually think that security should guide this customer journey. We need to enable the customer to feel secure to interact with the bank in a digital manner. So it should not be difficult to provide the same service on a digital manner, and the APIs that the Fusion Fabric.cloud system and platform is providing is actually enabling us to use different systems. So we can actually work together with different fintechs to leverage the expertise that they are having. We are providing a security platform. We're using an integration possibility with fraud detection. We're using a integration possibility with governmental listing, blacklisting, to actually enable the banks to provide the best service possible. So if we look at the overall picture, we actually see that being part of the marketplace and being part of FFDC as a whole, we are enabled and we're getting exposure to a way bigger market, and by that community to be able to leverage the best possible services to our end customers and to the end customers of the banks. So we really think that securing all the channels will provide a better user experience and will enable the bank to provide all the services they were doing before COVID.
All right, thanks, Twan. So actually, let me go through quickly what developers can do right now using the Fusion Fabric.cloud, which is an open and free software for all developers. So you can simply go to the developer.fusionfabric.cloud, and that's the homepage for our developer portal. And let's go and explore the APIs which needed for the customer onboarding. So as you can see here, we have the categories of the APIs listing by, let's say, consumer banking. So we can filter out this as a consumer banking, or if you're targeting corporate banking, lending solution or whatever. So you can simply change the category here. Or is it a B2B integration, B2C integration? Is it a service API required? So you can filter out the list of APIs we can see here. We also have another different view, which is a solution view. If we filter, let's say here, the customer and account management software, you can see here the customer onboarding APIs, where you can create a customer, you can do a payment later on, you can do a financial transaction. So if we click on one of the APIs here, which is onboarding and information, you can actually search for an existing customer, create a customer, update customer account information, and so on and so forth. And you can simply download the Swagger specification and or download actually the Postman collection, which is a kickstart for you to test through our sandbox. And all of this is actually for free for the customer and developers. You can just simply click on register and fill a small onboarding form, and you are out there, and your journey can start from here. Let me go back to the APIs also. I will show you one of the other features, which is the service API. So for example, when we mentioned the fraud detection, so it's actually fraud is like a service for us in this platform. And as a developer, you can simply consume this API regardless what is the fintech behind this. And we take care of doing this fraud with our partners. like Net Guardians or some other partners. This is underneath, so only you can take care of this API as a Swagger. So you send the transaction information, and the response is simply pass or fail with some flagging example for this kind of API. So this is from the API's point of view, and also we can help you with the design and a kickstart for designing and building the UI of the application. So it's not only the APIs as well. So we have the design section, and actually it comes with a toolkit for developers and another toolkit for designers. You can build your own application again from here, and with GitHub project you can have it in your language, C#, Java, or whatever. So this is all as a kickstart for you, where you can develop and innovate in your region, in your country, based on the regulation, and enable banks to quickly come across here and join the new digital life. I have also some samples like retail application. So this is a full retail application. Developers can start from here, customize it, and develop something for your own region. So now, as we said, the journey can start now, because we believe the innovation is open and your future is open. And now coming to Ryan. So do we have questions, Ryan?
Hey, yes. So a reminder of, well, I didn't actually cover it at the beginning. To ask questions, which we're going to cover now, just use the comments tab down below on the platform that you're watching. We've had one come in that actually, there's two parts to it. So we have two issues. Digital banking, so e-signatures, face recognition, eye authentication, need a clearance from the central bank. That's the first part. The second part is digital can't completely replace the customer onboarding story, as we still have to use papers. So as a product manager, we were working on a digital onboarding process before COVID-19, but unfortunately we're facing the above mentioned issues. It needs time, budget to be digitally oriented. I believe this may be out in the Middle East, I believe, which Ramy, you probably know a bit better than me.
Yeah, that's correct, and thanks for asking the question. Yeah, I mean the digital banking, as we mentioned, it is there long time back, even before COVID, and I'm sure that the process is not an easy, but we really started this with multiple banks. So we recently launched one of the first digital banks in Asia. And we work together with the regulations and to ensure this. So it will take time, I know, but we collaboratively works with the central bank. We go and submit the use case. We work together. We should keep enforcing this. I've seen in the Middle East, some countries like Egypt, they start adopting the AKYC from the central bank back in January. And now with the move towards COVID, I'm sure that lots of central banks will start adapting the AKYC process. And when it comes to actually submitting the physical documents, this still can be done with this model. I've seen this in multiple countries. So in the UAE, they use it through the courier. So you get like Aramex or any of the couriers. So they come and collect physically the documents from you and submit it back to the bank if you don't want to physically be there in the bank. In Germany, we've been working with some banks where you submit the stuff to the post office, and the post office will trigger the OK to the bank and to the central bank later on. So it is a journey. We cannot say what can go right, what can go wrong. It's not a straightforward process, we know. But we have to figure out a way altogether to, I would say, to encourage the central banks and the regulations to go through it. This is actually the similar story to the cloud. So now, when you go to many of the countries, they said no to cloud when it comes to banks. But with this COVID situation, I can assure you that the cloud is the way to go, because again, the physical presence is no longer required, and also the cost of this. So why do you pay actually for the hardware? Why do you pay for the software all the time? So it has to be shared. It has to be upgradable safely. Banks just need to take care of their business and leave the IT part aside. Yeah.
I also think that by taking small steps and actually making the digital onboarding easier and easier, we cannot elevate the full physical presence in some countries, as we see in African region, where there is a regulator actually saying we need to have physical presence to verify an ID card. Our system also from time to time has certain older ID cards that cannot be verified correctly. We can at least take already preliminary steps to shorten the physical presence in the branch, for example, to shorten the interaction between the bank customer and the client, to enable the customer experience to be more flexible and more focused on serving the client and not collecting the data, which used to be a very long and tiresome process by filling in a lot of papers. This can all be done digitally, then printed, and actually only, for example, a signature or a personal in-person verification can then be done in presence in a branch.
Kind of a follow-on from that question, as we've touched upon it. I guess the idea of how can developers play a part in fulfilling kind of localized requirements. Because what's interesting is when you look at each region, it can be very specific in terms of solutions. So if you take M-Pesa as an example in Kenya, the reason why that solution works for payments is because KYC is linked to your SIM card. So actually that overcomes that element of KYC, but you can't just lift and drop the same solution elsewhere. So what's kind of your advice and your thoughts on how developers play a role in those localized requirements?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, the localized requirement, the digital onboarding itself is a workflow, and usually we manage that with a very flexible business process software, a customizable one. So it cannot be the same. Each bank will have its own workflow. Each region will have their own workflow. As we mentioned, the more APIs we have, the more flexibility you can add. You can squeeze the process. You can inject more checks into the process. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned, from the core banking point of view, we are doing all of this to create a customer or create a party into on our system, and then create an account, or deposit, loan, or whatever product is underneath. So the process up to this level is completely customizable, completely has to go through the regulations. You need to do in some cases to need to check that this is not linked to any terrorist activity. There is no delinquency or some troubles with some other loans and some other banks. So based on each and every country, based on the approved limit for this bank or the risk factor, the process need to be changed. And we play with the local providers, we play with the international providers, we play with the KYC giant, I would say, like Gemalto, Onfido, Jomio, all these brands where they actually operate in the local markets. They also verify a very big number of physical documents. They are actually participating in issuing these documents. So one of our partners actually was the one who issued the British passport. So they are the ones who can easily verify that this is the actual British passport, for example. So that's actually to answer the question. Is it has to be open, it has to be localized, it also need to be with multiple language. So in Paris or France, you need to make it in French, for example. That's the first language. Some other Middle East countries, Arabic is mandatory, so you need to understand Arabic in the process and put it localized into that. And residency, if you are a resident to a country and this is not your home country, again, you need to verify the local laws for the residency. For example, you cannot apply for a loan if your residency is not up to date or it has only less than 6 months. So all these customized or localized factors, developers need to take care. They need to understand the local laws before proposing a solution to a bank or before trying to apply their idea into a bank, because obviously they will come to you back like, you don't understand the local market, you need to work out this, we have these obstacles, blah, blah, blah. So before you jump into a bank conversation, you need to understand the law, and you need also to build the story how you are going to convince the bank or how you are going to convince the local regulatory with your solution. So you keep like a flow chart of question and answer. So if I don't have this, what would be the opposite option? If they need physical presence of the document, maybe you can outsource it to a local courier company or using some of the kiosks. So here in the UAE, for example, they have an ID solution, which if you obtain for this ID using the kiosk machine, then you have a digital ID into your phone, and then you can use it with banks to onboard. So at least you have a digital ID, and that's already verified your residency ID or national ID card.
I mean, I also think that the market working of Fusion Fabric.cloud and the platform working can actually enable different parties to work together and to gain experience from each other, and to actually make sure that the integrations get put into practice by working together and sharing the experience that they have. So we're seeing that we don't offer all solutions for the bank, but we can actually work together with different partners within the network to offer the full spectrum of digital solutions needed, and actually make sure that the customer journey is followed correctly and is best for the end customer.
Yeah, true. Thank you, Twan.
So another question that's come in that's around security and verification. What's your thoughts on digital verification services like OTP and also disposable virtual debit or credit cards?
So Twan, would you like to answer this
Sure,
part
sure,
or OTP part?
We've seen for years that SMS and OTP is the way to go to get multi-factor authentication. What we have actually done is taking a step forward. So we don't use SMS. We can use SMS as a fallback, but we actually use both Android and iOS-based in-app notifications. So we use the power of the OS system to actually send secure messages to the customer to verify themselves through a mobile application. And of course, SMS can work. Of course, hard tokens and debit cards can work as well. But we have tried to actually set up a solution that can be integrated in existing or new to be built mobile applications, and then set up a secure channel in the background to enable the customer to use the services the bank is providing. By not only using a two-factor multi-factor authentication, but actually put 6 factors in place. So as we went through the flow, we're providing an additional step on top of email verification or SMS authentication or one-off bank cards. We're actually providing a full spectrum of services on the mobile device itself. So I think the next step is not to limit certain technologies, but to enable technologies by using mobile and digital solutions itself.
Yeah, and now even coming to the market, the voice signature also. So the voice signature is coming now to verify your voice, to verify as part of the authentication. And the second question is actually for the virtual debit card. That's definitely the way forward, and the credit cards and the debit cards as well. And you can start seeing this is happening already by using the wallet systems like Apple Wallet or the Google Pay or whatever. And I'm sure that this is the way forward. There is no need for the plastic card at some point of time. We should go and make life green. You just need to hold your phone. Maybe I barely remember when was my last time I used the physical card with whatever service, riding a taxi or using public transportation or even grocery shop or whatever, running. Every day for me, for biking, I'm just using my phone only, and the phone has the wallet and I just use it. So at some point of time, the plastic card itself, I would say we would have a good farewell for the plastic card shortly.
Sure, it actually reminds me of how I haven't used a card in so long that I've actually forgotten my pins because I'm so used to just using my thumb pretty much with Apple Pay. I've got a couple more questions. So one focusing in on, I guess, the impact of COVID, because it's obviously COVID's kind of shifting the world away from physical into digital. But you could argue that things like this digital onboarding journey, making it completely digital, was already happening, at least from the UK side. I remember seeing whiteboards with all these user flows of how banks were doing that. Do you think COVID has impacted it, maybe sped it up, or do you think we were already on that journey and we're just continuing?
So I will answer this from two angles. So digital banks, actually, this has no impact for them. This is a big plus for the digital banks because this is how they set up this already. So they were ahead. Even when I mentioned the numbers shown in Europe, how many banks are already there and how many challenger or new banks are doing this. So this is like, I would say, a good message to the traditional banks that, hey, if you are not digital, you need to jump into the digital space as soon as possible to compete. Otherwise, the digital banks will take the whole set from you. And I've seen personally from the number of requests we are receiving, the RFBs from the traditional banks, that they need a fully digital customer onboarding solution. We are actually doing lots of demos recently with partners, with localized partners as well. For these digital or for these traditional banks to move towards the digital, whether they are fully moving into digital or moving with a small new brand. They usually go with a co-branded, a digital brand with their like a pilot kind of option next to their existing bank, and they test it for a few months. If they see the traction is going there, they start slowly closing maybe some of the branches and move them towards the digital. So COVID is just I would say will accelerate the digital for the traditional banks, and it's a kind of acknowledgement to the good work which has been done into the new or challenger banks. I would say the effect will be if we're talking now, if you are to open a new digital bank or you are trying to jump into the market, yes, you will have some challenges now, because obviously it's going to be hard to acquire customers or new customers at this moment. So I think maybe a delay start to the last quarter of the year or early next year would be a good start for resuming the work. If you don't have a good supporters or good financial background, this might delay you a bit. But other than this, everything is digital, and I would assume or say that most of the stuff would need to be digital. You don't have to care about which bank you are dealing with. You need to even waive or reduce the charges for the interbank or I would say cross-border payments and all of this, because the world would become a one wallet, I would say, and regardless your physical presence, you are based on a country or based on another country, you need to freely move around, use your funds anywhere on board to whatever software or product, as long as you are entirely and legally matching what is required for this product.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree with what we're currently seeing in the market, Ramy. We're seeing that it has accelerated the urge for the traditional banks to actually digitize their services. And the good thing about the unfortunate situation is actually that they are seeing the need to do so to actually serve their clients best. And more banks are actually also putting in the funds needed to digitize their systems in place. And I think the Fusion Fabric.cloud solution is providing a backbone to modernize the systems in place, because that's a big problem we're seeing as well, latency systems, and actually to be able to provide better digital integrations for the bank to digitally serve their clients.
What's your thoughts on, I guess, the term I would call, I think everyone calls, positive friction in user journeys? So in the case where if something's too easy, especially when it comes to making payments, especially large payments, if it's too easy to do and it's too quick, people kind of have that level of anxiety. So in some cases, people add in positive friction, so purposely slow down something or put a barrier in there just to give that consumer confidence that things are going in the right way. What's your thoughts on how do you balance that? Like, should there be some positive friction in an onboarding journey where you might need to go somewhere physically, or you might have to wait a bit? Or do you think it should be quick? Should be quick and easy? Because it's a big decision in some cases, setting up a brand new.
I would say it is, I mean, there should be a balance. So as Twan mentioned a good point when he was demoing that creating a temporary account or a virtual startup account where you can operate the basic stuff, upload your picture later on, maybe amend your information and have like a placeholder, like I'm gonna start my account here and so on. So this is not an active account, I would say. Something to kickstart you as maybe in a standard or pre-validated stuff where you can still feel the software, you can still see the products the bank offer and so on and so forth. And this is to be verified physically, as I mentioned, maybe it's using the kiosk machine or sending someone to collect data from you, or you go and mail a copy of your documents to the bank and they can verify it in a day or two. But if you look at the stats, a lot of customers, they started the journey and then they quit even before completing the journey because it takes time. And I can share offline some stats from some of the reports actually on how many customers left the journey before they even started. So I got some feedback from banks, like when you onboard the customer from an advertisement, let's say a very good rate term deposit, you see an advertisement while you are browsing LinkedIn or Facebook or any of these social media. Okay, yes, I like this this percentage. Why don't I have a product? When you click on that, it will ask you to download an app in your phone. So no, I'm not gonna do this. So so that's a feedback we're receiving from many of the customers. So now they start to mix and match. So they will, in this situation, as they tested this kind of persona and this journey, so they said, okay, so we will start the journey in a responsive UI, which can work if you jump from your phone or you jump from the internet banking. And this is to kick you start, and then you can upload the document, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of this, you can see the icon shows that you can now start using the mobile application. You download it from the App Store or Google Play or whatever. So at least you covered, or you went through this without downloading any new application. And once the customer is confident enough, have seen the product, have seen the rate, and so on and so forth, now he will start, you say, like the last click. In order to fund this term deposit, you need just to click here, download the application, and fund it from your other bank account or from a credit card or whatsoever. So again, there is nothing wrong, nothing right, and it has to be always in a development way. You need to test the appetite. You need to test the. You need to put actually some UX team where they analyze the behavior of the user, and also analyze the age group, because each age group, they have their own way of thinking, they have their own style. Your small children's, unlike the 20s or 30s or maybe 50s or 60s. So each segment is different. So I don't expect you would onboard someone from the 60s or 70s through a mobile application. I don't think this is the right audience for that, but obviously it is for millennials, for I would say the 20s or 30s, when you apply for a job for another company and you would like to have a salary account. So for sure you can go through a few clicks and create a salary account in a particular bank. So again, the journey will not end. The key message is everything needs to be open, everything needs to be customized. You don't have to come back to me as a software provider or a core banking provider. Each time you are looking for a change, you are coming to me, and I'm going to give you a good service with a good amount of money. No, we are not looking for this, or this is not the right approach we are going through. We will offer you with the right APIs, with the right extension points, with the right workflows, and you go ahead, change, shorten the workflow, add more steps. Answering the previous question, if it went very easy and people got very cautious about it, so you can put maybe a waiting button, maybe and send another OTP or another verification by email, refer to a friend, make a random payment in one of your transactions, and you go and get the OTP from your transaction history, something like this. When you go with a PayPal verification, kind of when they deduct amount and then an OTP in your bank account. So different flows, I would say. There is lots of customization and option open for you.
Thank you very much both for joining today. Conscious of time, did you have any closing remarks to kind of wrap up the session?
So from my side, as I mentioned, the life or the world is open. Just keep trying, just keep pushing. Don't stop by regulation says no, this is not allowed, or this is no longer, this cannot work in this particular country. Keep push your idea, keep push your use case, and I'm sure that the regulations will listen to you at some point of time, and you can actually rule the world or rule your region, and have this as part of what we call the new normal, because this is coming. No choice.
Good from my side. Thank you very much for having me one more time. I think the new normal is there to be accepted. I think it's there already in place by a technology position, and we just need to use the current technology provision of actually being able to make it secure, make it easy to use, and find a balance in what do we do physical, what do we do digitally, and actually educate the people about certain factors of steps they're taking in the digital customer journey themselves as well, so to enable them to get used to the new normal, because I don't think it's normal to anybody what is happening in the world currently, and we're all there to educate the end customers of how it can be done securely, and from there we need to actually take lessons learned to see what steps we need to provide to make it every day more easy to use banking services. So thank you once more for having me today. And
Thank you, Twan.
Thank you very much.
We're going also to launch a white paper after this event in a few weeks' time. So it's going to wrap up this session, and it also will have answers to the questions. If we didn't manage to answer all the questions, this will be part of the paper which we are going to launch at some point of time. Thank you, Ryan.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Catch you in the next
everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.